Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, Jennifer and I are joined by Lyzette Wanzer, and this is a copy of Lyzette's book. We're going to talk about that in a second, but let me read you Lyzette's amazing bio. This is amazing stuff. Lyzette Wanzer's work appears in over 30 literary journals and books. Her book, Trauma, Tresses, and Truth, Untangling Our Hair Through Personal Narratives, appears on Library Journal's 2022 Top 10 Best Social Sciences Books list and was a 2023 Black Women's Studies Association selection. Lyzette is a contributor to Lyric Essay as Resistance, Truth from the Margins, Civil Liberties United, Diverse Voices from the San Francisco Bay Area, and the multi-award winning The Chalk Circle Intercultural Prizewinning Essays. A National Writers Union and Authors Guild member, Lyzette's work has been supported with funding from the Center for Cultural Innovation, San Francisco Arts Commission, California Arts Council, Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, Black Artists Foundry, the Awesome Foundation, and California Humanities, a national endowment for the humanities partner. My goodness, Lyzette, you are so thoroughly impressive, and we are so very glad to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
So to start off today, could you tell us a little bit about you and then how you decided to put this beautiful book together for us?
So I am a native New Yorker who's been living in California now for about 19 years, after a 6-year stint in Atlanta in between those two. And I am a creative writing instructor and an author. My focus as an instructor is on professional development for creative writers, but I also teach a couple of craft classes in lyric essay and flash fiction or sudden fiction or short stories. So for the past 2.5 or so years, I've been living off of a bunch of grants, but my prior day job was as a website administrator for healthcare companies. So how did this book get started? What was the genesis of it? It actually began during the summer of 2020. So if you remember, I'm sure you all remember that was what I call the summer of racial reckoning.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I remember how enraged I felt every single day. So this means I was waking up enraged, not just angry, not just mad or irritated, but enraged. And going to bed enraged. I could not work. I couldn't eat. It was very difficult to sleep and to function. And I knew I had to find a way to healthfully metabolize all of that rage and all of that stress in my bloodstream. And, yes, I was going to the demonstrations. Yes, I was going to the marches, but that wasn't helping me feel like I was doing anything. And I thought, wait a minute, you're a writer and your weapon is your pen. So I thought I had written an essay called Twisted that was about my natural hair journey and some of my experiences. And I thought, the policing of our natural hair and the persecution of it is another form of surveillance of the Black body and persecution of the Black body. So I can go ahead and hook into that zeitgeist and write a book about it. And I started writing the book, and then I thought, just a second, I'm hearing from too many people that, oh, this is a new issue. It's just Lyzette. She's very sensitive. She's just had, a string of luck with people making comments and trying to touch her hair, whatever. And I thought, I need to get some other voices into this book so that people will not think it's just Lyzette's experience. This has gone on for, millennia. And so I got 3 generations of Afro-Latino and African American women into the book. Each of them contributed either an essay or a poem about their experiences. And then I contributed about 4 pieces myself. So I did that because I wanted to show that this is almost a ubiquitous experience for us. If you're a Black woman or a woman of the African diaspora, you probably haven't gotten out of childhood without having some sort of scarring or traumatic or humiliating experience concerning your hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent the book proposal out, and then by the end of September, I had 4 publishing offers and 1 agent offer, which I like to say would not have happened any other year.
Yeah.
Not the year before, wouldn't happen this year. It happened then because of what was going on that summer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of things came out of that summer that would not have any other summer.
Yes.
Including us.
Yeah, including myself and Jennifer, because the podcast grew out of a social justice book club that I started in response to George Floyd's murder. And Jennifer was one of the first people to join, and also one of the most active people in the group. And then Jennifer and I were like, hey, we want to reach more people. We want to cover more topics. And so the idea of a podcast came up, and we both, I mean, like, because I had thought about a podcast or a blog or something like that, like years before, and just totally shut myself down. I was like, who wants to hear what I have to say? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And
I
then,
do.
yeah, exactly. And so when Jennifer brought up, hey, I have this crazy idea, I mean, literally the hair on my arms stood up, and I thought, oh, okay, I think this is going to work. And we literally just like, we just jumped right in and taught ourselves everything. And this podcast was a direct formation out of all of that. So yeah, 2020 was a fruitful year in many, many ways. But I want to bring up, in one of the essays in the book, you brought up policing our bodies and our hair. And Jasmine Hawkins writes in the essay Power Struggle on page 170, what appears to be a simple, mutable characteristic to the outside world is really the extension of a deeply rooted societal tension. And this part I double underlined. Our hair is not our own. It is another part of us that is subject to policing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's more down below that I highlighted, but I won't read all that. So, but I will say, Lyzette, and I started to say this before we hit record, but reading this book and reading these essays brought up so much for me, and a lot that's right at the surface, but then some other stuff that I really had forgotten about, and some things that I didn't quite make the connection with until I had finished the book and it was still marinating and things kind of started to click.
I hope you gave yourself some grace with that process.
People who've listened to the show know that I'm working on this grace thing. But one thing that came up was, and this has happened like a million times, and I'm sure any Black woman can or has a similar story. There have been times where I would try to find a new person to cut my hair. And I go into a salon and the person looks at me literally like I've got a third eye, like, just like, sticking out of my head. And they're like, oh, we can't do. And I'm like, it's hair. Like, what? And so literally I walk out leaving feeling like there's something wrong with me. And then, oh God, when I was really little, like as a little kid, sorry, I'm making this all
it's okay. Do what you need to do.
So when I was really little, I had very, very long hair, very curly hair. I mean, it's very curly and very long. And I saw some famous person, some famous woman with a short haircut, and I thought it was great. And I wanted that haircut. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. And I said, Mom, I want this haircut. Because my mom cut everybody's hair in the family. I was like, Mom, I want this haircut. She's like, no, you don't. I was like, Mom, I really want this haircut. No, you don't. Mom, I really want. No, you don't. Mom, I do. Nope, you're going to hate it. I want the haircut. So she's like, all right, fine. All right. So she cut it and cut it short. And I looked at her and I remember saying, I hate you. And I was devastated.
Mhm.
And literally, it wasn't until just like maybe a couple of weeks ago, like after finishing reading your book and marinating for a while, that I realized that was the point in my life where I started to feel not pretty.
Oh,
Oh,
that's big.
And that realization was so deep. I have been having like total dislike for my hair the last year or so because I feel like it's just not behaving. It's not doing anything. Like I feel like it's not growing. It's not retaining length, blah, 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 whatever. Reading this book and then having that realization, it was just like, oh crap. This is the very emotional, deep,
yeah.
like internalized
Mhm.
topic.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing all these voices together because it's such an emotional topic. I mean, aside from my experience, why is hair so emotional for us? I mean, hair is emotional for lots of people, yes, but why
Yeah.
is it so emotional for Black women?
I believe it's because we have embedded trauma that has come down through the generations.
Mm,
And these generations reach all the way back to slavery.
mm-hmm,
The more closely your features resembled your master's features, the better
mm-hmm,
treatment you got, right? Literally. And that includes skin tone, phenotype, and also hair characteristics.
mm-hmm,
And so I believe that that trauma has been recycled and recycled and recycled, and it's been passed down through the generations. Think about, I don't know if you've seen it other than in the book. I don't know if you've seen the newspaper ads from Black newspapers,
yep,
in the 19th and early 20th centuries,
yep,
where the ads are all about fixing your quote, kinky, ugly,
mm-hmm,
unmanageable hair and making it
yep,
soft, long, silky, straight, all these, characteristics of Caucasian hair. And
mm-hmm,
what those papers were trying to do was help us take advantage of the larger slice of life that was now available to us. That means our matriarchs in our families wanted the same for us, right?
mm-hmm,
So they wanted us to have upward mobility, find good jobs, be taken seriously in the boardroom when we got those jobs, be eligible for promotions, find a mate,
mm-hmm,
and be admitted to, the fancy sororities and so on and so forth. So thought that they were trying to help us. Here's what you need to do in order to step into these cracks in the doors of opportunity. And so I think that that oppression and that regard for hair has been passed down, and it's been traumatizing, but it came from a place of fear
yeah,
married with love
mm-hmm,
and trying to smooth the way for generations coming down the line. And I think that's why there is so much tied up in our hair.
mm-hmm,
I think that's why. Think about a place like Hampton University and HBCU
mm-hmm.
that doesn't allow its business students to wear natural hairstyles. And people are like,
It
"What?
doesn't?
That's a historically Black university." And people like to, jump on Hampton and say, "Oh, shame on them. They should take a stand. They should be agitating against this, blah, blah, blah." But look at it from the administration's viewpoint.
Okay,
They want
yeah,
their graduates
yeah,
to be well placed on Wall Street,
mm-hmm,
and to get the interviews with Morgan Stanley and with all these banking and investment banking companies and so on. They want their graduates to not just be employed, but to be well
yeah,
employed and well positioned.
mm-hmm,
So that's what they're trying to do.
yeah. I literally I didn't start feeling comfortable wearing my hair curly in the workplace until I don't know, maybe like my early 30s, maybe.
Okay.
And even like a year and a half ago, I went for an interview with the firm I now work at. And even though I've been wearing my hair curly for, I don't know, decades, I literally pulled my hair back into like a low bun for the interview.
Yeah, that's the type of calculus that we have to do that other
Hmm.
women do not have to do. And it's very ingrained. Fortunately, even I still do it. And it's just so natural that I've got to catch myself thinking that, when I'm styling myself in the morning, I'm thinking, okay, where am I going today?
Hmm.
Um, am I wearing my hair in a way that's going to scare too many people? Am I wearing my hair in a way that's going to get me followed in the store? Or am I going someplace where I don't have to worry about this at all?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be other people of color there. So, and since writing the book, I catch myself now doing it. It was so automatic and natural for me. And I catch myself thinking
Hmm.
that and like, stop that. You wear your hair the way you want to. If they're uncomfortable, oh well. If
Right.
they get nervous, oh well. But that's how ingrained it is that it's just, I think of it naturally.
Hmm.
It doesn't even feel like it's oppressive. It's just what I have to do to function. So working on catching myself in the mornings when I'm
Hmm.
getting ready to style my hair. Can I just wear it out? Is it okay? Should I put it in a ponytail? Should it be a high ponytail, a low ponytail? Should I put any beads in it?
Yeah.
All these types of things that I have to, this tightrope walking that I've got to do, this calculus. And I'm trying to catch myself
Yeah.
at doing it. So,
But it also it also seems kind of like a catch-22 because like in Raquel's case, had she not pulled it back, maybe would have kept her from getting
mm-hmm.
the job that she needs to provide for
Yep,
herself.
Hmm.
yep.
So I was wondering, or we were wondering, if you would be willing to read a little bit from one of the pieces that you wrote for the book called Toward Decolonizing Our Roots.
Sure, absolutely.
You can
All
set it up
right.
any way you need to.
Okay. I will say that I chose this to be my first essay in the book because it it's like a layer cake. So it has a layer of personal vignettes, and then it contextualizes those vignettes by going back to history or a political context. So the whole essay is kind of like that sort of layer cake. And I find that having those personal vignettes hits the ear differently,
Ah,
and people who might not get it will get it more when they hear how this personally manifests in our lives. Not
Hmm.
just my life, but in our lives. So I'm going to read a couple of different excerpts from Toward Decolonizing Our Roots, skipping around a little bit. It was just my third day on the job. I was still learning to use the fax machine, a newfangled contraption that everyone in the office viewed with diffident deference. Another little background is that the gentleman I'm about to speak with, when I first started this job at Rockefeller Center in New York, he was on vacation when I first started.
Hmm.
So he has now returned from that vacation when I'm meeting him. Okay. Let's see. The company was small, comprising 8 employees. Coworkers had taken me out for lunch on my first day, minus one team member who was on vacation. I'm going to skip ahead to when this absent vacationer comes back in the office, and he's introducing himself to me. A portly man in his late 30s with a shock of russet curls and sporting a bright white shirt and a polished silver watch, he came over to introduce himself with a nut-cracking handshake. I returned to my desk and politely inquired about his vacation. We made small talk, then business speak, back to small talk. Only so much to be said about the weather, the traffic, and the mayor. A column of silence rose between us. His gaze alighted on my head. How did you get your hair like that? He reached across my desk and ran all 5 fingers of his right hand through my shoulder-length braids. At this time, I was wearing Senegalese Casamance braids. I seized his arm mid-arc, gripped it just hard enough to signal my spirit, and knocked it away with a fist. I stared at him, letting a new foul silence shroud us for several seconds. 3/4 of letting a lance hit its target is timing. If you want to touch my hair, I said, you ask first. And when you do ask, I'll say no. Shock and puzzlement leaped through his features. I read the question marks and a flash of apprehension in his eyes. He flushed several shades of red, pivoted, exited. Do you wash those? She, a fellow strap hanger, blonde, on New York's Uptown Lexington Avenue Express. Although we didn't know one another, we waited in the same area of the subway platform each morning and often wound up riding together, exchanging nods and smiles. Wash what? Your braids. I wrinkled my brow and tilted my head, affecting a perplexed posture. I was wearing dreadlocks at the time. These aren't braids. Yeah, they are. No, they're not. What do you call them? Dreads? Dreads? As in dreadlocks. Do you wash them? Of course I wash them. It's my hair. You wash yours, don't you? I didn't know you were Rasta. I didn't either. Thanks for enlightening me. For over 400 years, Black women's hair has been the target of erasure efforts, demarginalizing us both as African Americans and as women. The various institutional modalities of policing Black women's, and men's as well, hair are a form of racist politics. Despite structural denials to the contrary, our natural hair remains a heretical war zone. Policing of both Black bodies and our natural hair is a form of structural oppression. This is not such a surprising revelation when you consider that law is itself a form and site of politics. In her 1990 essay, Is Your Hair Still Political?, Audre Lorde explains how an immigration officer's objections to her dreadlocks nearly cost her a vacation in the British Virgin Islands. Natural hair, whether in the form of braids, afros, dreadlocks, or other natural styles, has always been political. Unfortunately, despite our being well into the 21st century, the response to Lord's question is the most disheartening, definitive yes. Black women's natural hair remains political and persecuted. Writing about the many disquieting, execrable, and prejudiced experiences vis-a-vis Black women's hair illuminates two conundrums. First, the absurdity of trying to enforce white hair care standards on African American women, and second, the muted but invasive means by which society shames our natural hair from infancy through adulthood. I'll stop there.
Beautiful. Thank you for reading that. Can you tell us about the Crown Act?
Yes. Well, I'm in California. We were the first state to enact the Crown
Yay!
Act, courtesy of then, in 2019, Senator Holly Mitchell. She's now in the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors. And she's the one who put this forward to our governor, Gavin Newsom. So he signed it into law July 3rd, 2020. So now July 3rd is known as National Crown Act Day. So Crown is an acronym and it's also a synonym. Of course, it's a synonym for the hair on our heads, crown. Also, thinking back to the ancestors, when we are descended from royalty, that type of crown, our queen crown. And then the acronym stands for creating a respectful and open world or workplace for natural hair. And that is legislation that protects people from hair bias and hair discrimination, primarily in the workplace and also in educational settings. So that is the history of the Crown Act. We were the first state, New York was the second state, and we're still not up to half of the country having a Crown Act. And at the federal level, it has now been reintroduced. I think this is the third time. Thank you, Senator Cory Booker, for sticking with it, and Bonnie Coleman. it keeps getting shot down at the national level. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping this time it gets passed and we have a federal Crown Act so that my hair is protected in every state that I go to, and not just in the patchwork quilt that we have now of states or municipalities. In some cases, a particular municipality will have a Crown Act, but the whole state won't. So if you're in that city or town, you're protected, and then outside of it, you're not.
Right.
It's
And
so weird.
why is it important that all of our states have the Crown Act?
Because let's say I leave California and I move to a state without one, and I'm interviewing for a new position. They can say, you know, everything about you is great for the job. Your references check out. Your resume looks terrific. Everything about you is terrific as a fit. We just need you to do one thing. And I wouldn't have any legal recourse.
Mhm.
Okay, so if they made that job offer contingent on, we just need you to cut your dreadlocks or we just need you to straighten your hair, I wouldn't have a legal recourse in those states with that
Yeah.
one. This also is an issue for Native Americans, especially men who wear their hair long. And I have heard from a number of them since the book has come out saying that, you know, we have this issue too. We have to wear our hair long.
Mhm.
It's a tribal requirement. We're honoring our ancestors. There's, depending on the tribe, there are all kinds of meanings infused in not cutting their hair. And they said, even if we go to an interview with our hair neatly braided down our back, it's long, yes, but it's neatly contained down our back. We're still told, we would love to hire you, but we have a dress code and we just need you to do this one thing. And then we
Ugh.
can extend an offer. So the Crown Act should protect everyone's hair. But of
Mhm.
course, it was penned out of concern specifically for African Americans and our children in schools who are being discriminated against and persecuted, really,
Yeah.
for wearing natural hair.
Yeah. For instance, there was a young man in a kid in high school who was on the wrestling team.
Oh,
And the Jennifer, I don't know if you saw this on the news, but it was kind of a big deal. Like it was, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, but this kid was wrestling, and in the middle of his match,
yep.
a ref pulled him out of the match
Mm-hmm.
and told him that he had to cut his dreads or he would forfeit the match,
Right.
and literally cut the kid's dreads right there in front of everybody who was there,
Yep.
because the kid obviously didn't want to forfeit the match. But
Right.
he's a kid, what else is he going to do, right? I mean, apparently that kid, I mean, I don't know if hopefully he's not still traumatized, but they did an interview with him and his mom sometime after that, and apparently the kid was still traumatized about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Unfortunately, he had his little sister cut his dreads off
Hmm.
because said he was tired of looking in the mirror and constantly seeing that referee's face.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question, since we're talking about, specific styles of hair at this point. In the reader discussion guide in the back
Mhm.
of the book, which is
Yeah.
awesome, by the way, I'm glad you put that in there. You mentioned that the federal courts in the US have said that under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the only protected natural hairstyle is the afro.
Yeah.
Why? Do you
Yeah.
know why that is?
Well, I think that's because the afro came forward during the civil rights
Uh-huh.
era,
Okay.
and I think that that's why the afro is specifically mentioned in that. However, states that don't have a Crown Act have
Mhm.
used that exact same legislation to say, well, we don't need a Crown Act because we already have the civil rights law, which
Mm.
protects everyone's hair anyway. But we know that that doesn't, that's not true on the ground.
Mm-mm.
But they
Mm-mm.
use that as an excuse to say, well, we don't have to bother with legislating a Crown Act because you're already protected under civil rights. And then you look at the language and it's only the afro, which is absurd enough anyway in its
Yeah.
own. But yeah, that same law has been used as an excuse not to bother
Okay.
passing a Crown Act as well. But I think it's the afro because that was part of the whole civil rights eruption that happened when men and women were wearing afros as part of the Black is Beautiful movement.
Mhm.
And I think that's how come that happened to get shoehorned in and nothing else did.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
I'm gonna ask a basic question that may sound uneducated, but I think a lot of white people may be curious. What does natural hair versus other hair mean? Like, what is the,
Oh.
yeah.
So natural hair means the hair that comes out of our scalps exactly the way it is without being treated with chemicals, especially relaxers, hot combs, flat ironing, doing whatever contortionist moves you need to do to make the hair look as Caucasian as possible.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Which is not how the hair grows out of our heads naturally. It grows out, like this. And if we choose to style it like this, then, you can wear dreadlocks, bantu knots, all different kinds of braids, afros, fades, TWAs, teeny weeny afros, all kinds of things without putting chemical straighteners in it or using a hot comb or flat iron to make it straight.
And what is that process like for someone, perhaps a little girl, having her hair done and processed? What's that like on a daily, weekly, I don't know, basis for someone?
It's very time consuming, especially if you're doing a relaxer. This is not a quick fix. It's expensive. It's also unhealthy. And if you got the hot comb as a child, then you remember flinching in the chair because you're trying so hard not to get your ears burned. And also that comb, when it comes near your scalp, you can feel the heat radiating from it. It's very, very hot. One slip and you're going to get burned. If you got
Think
a
of like
jerry
your curling
curl,
iron and you
Mhm.
like hit your forehead. I was thinking like, think of like your curling iron. You're like, in like high school, you're curling your bangs and you hit your forehead
Yes,
like that.
I think the hot comb's hotter than that.
Well, sure, but I was just trying to like, you know, make it
Yep,
relatable.
yep. If you got a jerry curl, then you had this trifecta of nauseous smelling lotions and potions that you had to pour on your hair daily. You had to sleep with a cap over your head to keep the moisture and the juices in. If the cap came off, then you had this oily residue on the pillowcases, and this could happen while you're having a sleepover at someone else's house. And then, of course, the, interminable salon appointments on Saturdays. Saturday is money day for Black hair salons, and so they would schedule everyone to come in, and you would sit there literally for hours waiting your turn to get this, as we call it, creamy crack on your hair, the relaxer. And the longer it was on there, the more bone straight your hair would get, but also the more your scalp would burn.
Uh,
And sometimes it would actually burn some of the hair right off of your scalp. Not pleasant, not pleasant, certainly not time efficient. So many of us have memories of these things, the hot comb, the relaxer, the jerry curl snafus, and so on.
yeah, it sounds awful,
Yeah.
actually.
And actually, there are class actions that are going on now with relaxers.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
That's the New York Times article?
no, this is Trial Magazine, the American Association for Justice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I work at a law firm, so that's why I have this particular publication. Yeah, and there's class actions that are going on now because of the long-term effects
Yeah.
that relaxers have
Wow.
had, and like the marketing of them, very insidious marketing. There were even, I don't know if they still do, but there were ones that like had little kids on the
Yeah.
box. So it
Yes.
was like specifically marketed to little
Yes.
kids.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's get them started earlier.
Big money.
Yeah, big money. Yeah, serious money. And so there's just all of this legislation that's going on now
Yep.
with relaxers and the effect
Yes.
that, I mean, not just the emotional turmoil and just, the time suck and the money suck,
Yes.
but it's actually affecting people health wise.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a cancer connection.
Yep.
There's an
Yep.
endometriosis connection.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Um, And yeah, all of that's coming to the fore now. I don't know if you saw the New York Times article that came out a few weeks ago. Everybody sent me that article. So
Yeah, I
many
haven't seen
people
that
think
one.
that, yeah, that it's new. And I'm like, this is not new. We've known this. We've known this for decades, that stuff is unhealthy. I don't know if you know about the study they did back in the 50s where someone took the ingredients of the relaxer and put it on a metal can and it burned a hole through the metal can. Well,
Oh no.
yeah, yeah. So that's what we're
Wow.
putting in our hair. Of course, that's not healthy.
Yeah. And then somebody just wants you, oh, why don't you just do this to change your hair? Come down.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
So one of the topics of the stories in your book that I liked so much was young girls telling the point from when they went from using the relaxers, the hot combs, etc., and decided to come out as themselves, as
Yeah.
all natural, and what those processes were like. Sometimes the authors described it as the big cut. Sometimes it was a
PC,
growing,
the big chop.
the big chop, the big chop.
Yeah.
How would you describe that process for a person, maybe for yourself or maybe other people? What does it take to get there?
For myself, I had relaxers, Jerry curl, and hot comb, and then extensions all the way until after college. And one of the stories I tell in Toward Decolonizing Our Roots, the first essay, is the moment when I decided I was going to grow out my relaxer, which was in solidarity with this woman who was working in Boston and had always wanted a relaxer and then came in one day at the hotel's front desk wearing braids. And because she refused to go back to a relaxer or a perm, she got dismissed. And I remember being extremely outraged. And I said, that is so wrong, especially because the guests who were checking in were all complimenting her braids. They liked it, but management didn't like it. And so that's for me when I began growing out my relaxer. There are a lot of journey to natural stories in the book, with some of the women doing this much earlier. But for me, that was the wake up call. And I still don't even know who this woman was. I just remember being so outraged, and this is one thing I could do. But you know, a lot of children also grow up doing what my sister and I did, which was running around with yellow sweaters on our head and flinging, you know, the sweaters around like we had blonde hair, which is why those relaxer kits are marketed to kids, showing this ridiculously impossibly bone straight hair, because a lot of us did that, running around with, you know, pretending that we had this long hair. And for us, it was yellow specifically because it had to be blonde.
Right.
And so, yeah, I love all of the coming to natural stories that are in the book. I'm grieved by the number of stories of young ladies, usually under the age of 10, being humiliated in their schools, in their classrooms by adults who should know
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Or, you know, the parents send the kid to school wearing their hair natural, and they come pick up the kid and the hair's been cut off or it's been changed in some way without, I mean, why would you do that? Why would you
Yeah.
touch the hair of a child that's not your own? It's ridiculous. And apparently it also happens with Native Americans, the same thing. Kids being sent home with their hair chopped off. I mean, it's just the entitlement behind that is unreal.
Outrageous,
Yeah.
actually. It's
Yeah.
outrageous.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's just awful. Well, Whoopi Goldberg in her one woman show, like at the very, very beginning of her career, she has this part of her act where she's pretending to be a little kid and she puts a white button down on her head. She's like, these are my long, luscious locks, or something like that. Like I'm,
Yeah.
but she's saying it, and then, she kind of, the mood kind of changes,
Hmm.
and she's like, don't you think I'm pretty? Don't you? And then the shirt falls off, and she's
Hmm.
like, I'm not pretty anymore.
Hmm.
And it's just, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so many of us did that. With me, it would,
Yeah.
like, I'd have and I had long hair, but it was stupid. I would do the whole thing with the damn towel.
I remember the black dolls that had the hair that you could pull out of the Sent
Yeah,
it
yeah, you
and,
can. I could never get mine to go back in. So once I pulled it out, I was like, bored with that thing now. And they tossed it off to the side. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. So kind of getting back to the book, because there are some really, I mean, these essays are amazing. And I love how vulnerable the writers are.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate that so much. I'm sure you were inundated with essays. How did you choose which ones to pick? I mean, how did you narrow that down?
So actually, I did not do an open call for this book.
Oh, okay.
I did not do an open call. This was first a panel at a conference, the AWP conference. And so there were 5 of us there. So of course, those other 4 women were automatically included. And then I just started reading a lot of articles about the whole natural hair struggle. And I would reach out to these authors and say, hey, this is a project I'm doing. Would you like to be involved? And I also took referrals from writers that I already knew. Everyone in here was individually invited.
Nice.
Sometimes someone else would get word of it and send something in, and I'd say, sorry, this one's invitation only. If I do a book 2, maybe I'll do an open call. So these were all solicited, and I wanted to deliberately involve Afro-Latinas as well, because they said they get left out of these discussions so often.
Yeah.
And even now, when I'm doing an author event, Afro-Latinas will come up to me and say, thank you so much for including us and our voices and our experiences in this book, because we have the same issues, but we have an extra layer of it, on top of it as well, especially if we happen to be the only ones in our families with the kinky hair or with the dark skin, etc. And a whole layer of other pressure comes from that. And also between being forced to choose, are you Black or are you Latina, and that whole business. So yeah, there was no open call for this book.
Okay. We're seeing, the Crown Act hopefully gain more traction, and more people are wearing their hair natural and wearing different styles and things like that. Are there any sort of changes or movements that you see happening in the the natural hair world, maybe, that are kind of on the horizon?
Well, one thing that I like, that I'm finding encouraging, is seeing more news anchors, more
Yeah.
female news anchors wearing their hair natural and not making a big announcement about it or a big deal. They're on Tuesday, with a weave on, or coming in on Wednesday with TWA or braids or dreads or Bantu knots, and not saying anything about it. I love that. And I think that the more our kids can see that, the healthier and the better it is. So I'm very happy to see that. I'm also seeing natural hair in workplaces more often. Although I do want to say that I want to recognize my privilege here, which is not every Black woman has the means to stand up against an employer.
That's right.
And say, F you, I'm not going to change my hair. And this is especially true at the blue collar level, and they may not have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. They have families to feed. They have to keep a roof over their heads. They may not have a degree, and they may not have the privilege of being able to push back. So that's why I'm always careful to say this book isn't about hating on women who do not wear their hair natural. You don't know what the decisions are undergirding that. So that's not what this book is about. I can do that. I'm in a position where I can push back, but not everyone is. So I just wanted to throw that in there in terms of why we might not be seeing natural hair in some places, and we are seeing it more in others.
Okay.
Yep. I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell our audience about the projects that you are working on right now and how they can contact you?
Yes, you can definitely contact me through my website, which is author Lyzette Wanzer, MFA.com. And my current projects, one is the Trauma, Tresses, and Truth virtual conference.
Cool.
This will be the third one. This year it will be August 9th to 11th. It is virtual, so we've had people attend from actually quite a few other countries, Kenya, Canada, Brazil.
Wow.
And so I will submit the link for that. The admissions
Perfect.
passes are open now. There were a bunch of free passes. They're probably gone by now, but early bird passes may still be available. And the other project I'm working on, and that conference, by the way, it's a collection of panels, workshops, and webinars, all addressing the issue of natural hair. So we've got 25 plus speakers and keynoters and workshop leaders and webinar people presenting over the 3 days. We also will have an open mic on one day. And then the other project is my Muses and Melanin Fellowship for BIPOC creative writers. This is the pilot year. So this year it is fully funded and it's open to women of the African diaspora who do not yet have a book out or a book under contract. They do have talent, they're good writers, and they want to know how to become a professional author and build a sustainable career as an author. Those applications close July 5th.
Get that application in.
Oh, you?
Maybe.
Are you a candidate?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe.
And I will also send that link as well. You do have another week to apply.
Okay.
What a fantastic opportunity.
And
Yes.
all of those links will be in our show notes, people. So if you didn't write it down, that's fine. They'll be in the show notes. So not to worry.
Was there anything else you wanted to tell our audience that we didn't give you the chance to answer?
No, I do just want to remind everybody that July 3rd is National Crown Day. So the Dove's Crown website will have a whole bunch of events listed on there. So think about attending one. A lot of them are virtual.
Nice.
And World Afro Day is in September.
What was that day?
World Afro Day.
World Afro Day. Nice. I didn't even know that existed.
Michelle de Leon in, I think she's in England.
Okay. I did not know that was the thing. I just learned something else new today.
Yep.
That's awesome. Wow. Lyzette, you are a font of information. I dig it. I totally dig that. Lyzette, thank you so much for writing this book, for bringing all of these stories together in one place, and for giving everyone a voice to talk about their hair and what it means. It's not just an accessory. There's so much more to it. So thank you so much for writing this and for coming on to talk to us and our listeners about.
And I also want to say a quick thank you to the cover artist, W, who's in Pennsylvania, and to the internal sketch artist.
Beautiful sketches. Yeah.
Yeah. So much talent in this book. All of the talent, so beautiful. Thank you for putting this together and putting this out into the world, Lyzette.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Want to do a recap?
Sure. Man, I cried quick in this one.
Well, I think that's justifiable, and I think that's just about right, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. I will say, I mean, I was very excited about this from like the second it came on our radar.
Yeah.
And like I said, after I finished reading the book and the essays and, doing, my research to prep, it stirred stuff up for me, stuff that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I just thought, it'll be a good discussion. This is great. This is stuff we need to talk about. Yeah. La. And then all of my stuff started getting stirred up. and I started thinking about things. My experiences weren't as traumatic as some of the people in here. I mean, yeah, I'm doing that whole like,
Yep, you
pain,
are.
pain comparison thing, which
My
is
pain
awful.
is worse than your pain.
Right. But even still, like even the stuff that I went through, stuff that my mom tells me that people would say to her when I was little, like, oh, is she wearing a wig? I mean, my mom literally, like, and my mom's not a fighting woman, but my mom wanted to fight somebody,
Right.
when they would say stupid shit like that to her about me. And then just other stuff and just all of the policing that I've internalized and all of the Eurocentric beauty standards that I've internalized that so many other people have internalized. It it breaks my fucking heart.
And why wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Why wouldn't it? You were a little girl.
It is heartbreaking. And even now, I'm a grown-ass woman.
I'm a grown-ass woman.
I'm a grown-ass woman. And I'm still dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Lyzette said the same. She said she gets up and has to decide, where am I going today? What am I going to do with my hair?
Yeah.
How am I going to it's how am I going to fit in where I'm going? Which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
how am I going to stay safe today?
You put that. That's the exact right way to put that. How am I going to keep myself safe in this situation today?
Yeah. It's a mental calculus and it's a mental load. It's an emotional load that we have to carry, that we have to walk through the world with. It's tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this. And I'm so glad that Lyzette and the other people who wrote the essays in here and people who continue to speak out about this sort of thing and who speak about their experiences. I'm just so glad that all of this is out there. And I have to say, I'm glad that there are people who are listening, people who are actually hearing what is being said. And if they don't understand, they try to educate themselves, or they try to just to learn. So there's hope, but there's so much work that needs to be done. I mean, internally and externally for all of us.
Agreed. I can see this really touched you in everything.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to say. Raquel, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to put that application in. You're a bomb-ass writer.
Thank you.
And this seems like, I'll stay out of it, but I believe in you. I believe in you.
Thank you.
The other thing I want to say is that the sheer amount of money to be made in this country and other countries by telling people that they're not good enough the way that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's so sad. And it starts at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Targeting children, telling them that their natural hair is not good enough. Mm-hmm. This is what must happen to it. This is what you must do. This is the beauty standard. This is what you should look like.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about it because I've seen this kind of advertising in many ways. Look what the cereal industry did. Look what McDonald's does with kid toys to sell Happy Meals.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, about hair for people of color, we are teaching them, such young people, that who they are is not good enough. Yeah. And if you just spend more money, if you just spend more time, buy some more products, subject yourself to something that's close to kind of cruelty to burn your hair and your scalp. If we just subject ourselves to this, then we'll be good enough. Yeah. It's fucking bullshit.
It is.
And I wish we could, I'm a Pollyanna. I wish we could just stop funding these businesses.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'm going to get real kind of revolutionary on this, but I think that's one reason why people are afraid of natural hair, because it's bucking the system,
Right.
and it's taken money from that structure that is upholding and just buttressing the whole idea of the only beauty standard that matters is a Eurocentric beauty standard.
Agreed.
But when somebody is like, nope, not going to do it, I'm bucking the system, that makes, it's capitalism. That makes capitalism nervous.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to do is read this passage on page 172. It was written by Jewel Gomez. So let me find that. Look what I brought, Raquel. I brought my glasses.
Nice. I'm
knew
proud of
you'd
you.
be- I knew you'd be proud of me, so I didn't have to struggle through the reading. I did not write down the right page. Let me see that again.
Okay.
Oh, Jill Gomez. I did. I just
Okay.
wrote down the wrong. That was the start of that. Okay. So what she said, I think this is beautiful.
What page is it on?
177 in the middle paragraph.
Okay, cool.
Hair preparation, even when it's torturous, is the time when women, lesbian or not, are totally involved with each other. We can show care for each other that is specific to an imposed social trauma. We touch each other and display unadorned and unashamed pleasure. Or we can pass on self-hatred.
I had that exact same passage underlined.
Yes.
I did.
Because that is the hope. That is the movement. That is the change. We touch each other and display unadorned and unashamed pleasure in each other.
Yeah. Yeah. We can only hope.
There is a lot of truth. There is a lot of trauma in this book. There's definitely a lot of tresses. There's also a lot of love. There's a lot of mothers caring for their young daughter's hair. There's a lot of ritual. There's a lot of bonding. And yes, maybe it came from a misaligned concept of self, but there is a lot of love in this book to hold as well.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please read it.
Yes, people, please read this book. It's so good. Whether you are a member of the diaspora or not, read it. I mean, it's
maybe especially if you're not.
Well, yeah. That's a good point. But yeah, read it. You will learn a lot, and it will be an eye-opening experience for you. Thank you for talking about this, Jennifer.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners.
Yes, thank you, listeners. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.